Hello and welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. I'm your host Jarrod, and joining me tonight all the way from Perth is Sean. How you going, mate?
Yeah, not bad. Just the two of us.
Yeah,
We
mate.
can make it if we try. Just the two of us. Sorry.
Don't
Yeah,
give up
we're
the day
just
job, buddy. I'm
getting.
telling you.
We're just getting used to this being the black sheep of Australia for the last 2 weeks with the COVID. Being the ones that are having the community transmissions. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you want me to open with a joke before we get into the depressing stuff?
Oh, yeah, if you want, I was just gonna say I feel your pain because being over in Melbourne, that was us all last year. So yeah, good fun. Glad it's someone else,
Yeah.
but still not ideal. So go to your joke now, Sean. Here you go.
Okay. What's the difference between a nun praying and a nun in the bath?
Oh God. No.
One has hope in her soul, the other has soap in her hole.
God. Boo.
Hey, it's less offensive than the other one I was going to say.
Hang on, I should have done this.
There you
Yep,
go. How
terrible.
do you make an apple crumble?
Drop it.
Kick it in the balls. Okay, now that the fun stuff's out of the way, shall we talk about the football?
Yeah, sounds like an idea. So I was trying to think of the best way to sum up the game, right? And so I'll just read the starting lineup first. So we had Bain in goal, Taylor, Oyer, Welsh, and Kenny in the back line. Then we had Bruni, McGregor, Turnbull, Elanusi, Forrest with Edward up front. Bench of Barkers, Bitton, Griffiths, Ayeti, Sorrow, Christie, Ralston, Johnson, and Laxalt. So looking at that, I'm like, okay, 4-2-3-1, stock standard lineup that we've seen a lot this season. And it's the lineup that was never any good for us against Rangers up until we switched to a back three last year. So straight away I see that and I'm like, this could be really interesting. I tried to stay positive, but what was your take when you saw that lineup, Sean?
Yeah, I sent the same reaction to our group chat as I did to other group chats, was that it was a shite bag lineup. That was my instinctive reaction, and it bore out correctly. Before the game, a theory dawned in my head about why Kennedy is playing these same players like Brown every week, and McGregor, who's clearly in need of a rest, and Kenny, who Sai is the only thing I can say, and Scott Bain. And I'm thinking to myself, why is he playing all these players, all these lone players who are very, very unlikely to be here next year? And it occurred to me it's because he's doing what every other interim manager does at Celtic and at most high-profile clubs, and that's protecting their reputation and choosing teams in their self-interest and not what's in the best short to long-term interest or medium to long-term interest of the club. The reason that this occurred to me was I was asking myself what interim manager or temporary manager of Celtic has actually given fringe players and youth players a chance, and that the answer to that is Kenny Dalglish, because he's the only manager that we've had in that kind of way that's not been having to protect his reputation. Whereas when you have Lennon or Kennedy or anyone else that's trying to make their way in the game, they're going to not do what's in the best medium to long-term interest of the club. They're going to do what's in their best interest of their career. And when that team, I predicted it would happen beforehand, and that's what happened. Shite bag team.
Yeah, spot on there. Like, I would have loved to have seen Kennedy just say, you know what? Lenny's gone. The players aren't cutting it. I want to have a Finnegan crack at this to try and prove myself as a manager, because you think he's doing the safe option, which is, just play the stronger team on paper. But at the end of the day, that's not really doing anything. Look at the result. It's basically the same shit we were copping earlier in the season. Same result. Actually, a worse result. We got blasted at the end there. So,
Yep.
To me, I would have loved for him just to come out and say, I'm the interim manager. Get online or sit the fuck on the bench here. I would have loved for him to say, okay, let's go with Karamoko. Let's go Ralston, get in there. At least you're our player. You can't be worse than Kenny against Rangers. And just, have a crack. Put Hazard in. Get Bain out. He's rubbish. So, Edouard's done nothing all season. Let's put Griffiths or Yeti out there. Then out left, what do? Do you keep Alanusi? I probably still would have. Or change the formation so we didn't have to play him. But, yeah, it's just, I don't know, there was just a whole lot of stuff there. The only ones who in that starting lineup that I would have gone with probably would have been Taylor, Aya, Welsh. And even though you mentioned him earlier that he's tired, but I would have gone with McGregor as well because I wasn't expecting that from him.
I would chuck Turnbull into that list.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I left him out there.
Possibly Forrest. Quite fitness question aside.
Depends on the formation. Like what I said, you put Alanusi out there if you're keeping that formation, but maybe we go with the back three, bit on Welsh and Aya, and we play Jamesy at right wing back. Maybe that would have been an option to get him a game. But then that's, square pegs, round holes sort of thing again, which puts us back into Lenny territory.
Yeah, because we know in advance exactly what we're getting from Bain, Kenny, Elyounoussi, Edouard, Brown, and we know that it's not a good enough standard to challenge Sevco. So, why not at least play a wild card? It might fail, but at least it's an unknown, whereas we're just chucking in these known quantities that we know are going to fail, and it turned out that way. And Steven Gerrard knew it. That guy, he can barely spell his own name, but he knew to put Ryan Kent on Scott Brown, and Kent absolutely killed him again, the same as he did in the last game.
Yeah, he just doesn't have the legs to go with him, and the amount of times Bruni was caught out of position or chasing shadows, as you say, well, it was embarrassing, to be honest with you. Like, if we're going to go with two as a base like we did, then, and with McGregor not having his legs, and if Bruni had to play, then why isn't Sorrow out there with him? You can't expect McGregor to do all Bruni's running when he's that worn down himself. So, I don't know. I think as much as I love Bruni, I think he should be done for the season. And, yeah, the next two games, just play the guys who are going to be there next season. Or potentially
They should do the John Terry thing and start him in the last game against Hibs, then take him off in the 8th minute and give him a guard of honour.
Oh, yeah, that's actually an interesting one.
8-minute appearance.
Well, the positive for us is you've got 5 subs still, so you can actually burn one that way. But that right there, 5 subs, that's something I wanted to mention anyway. He's getting run around in circles. We get McGregor sent off, and suddenly you basically got 2 midfielders going against their 4 in the middle because they were playing a diamond. They overrun us in the middle of the park. So wouldn't you think at half time you'd take someone off and you'd put another midfielder in? Like put Sorrow in at half time? That's what I would have expected.
Yeah, what they did at half time was rather than making subs, they changed the shape. So they came out second half in a very clear and obvious 4-3-2 with Elyounoussi playing centre mid or left of centre mid with Forrest and Edouard up front. And it didn't really last. They kind of lost their shape pretty quickly. But that was the clear instruction in the way they lined up in the second half. Yeah,
it was pretty average. But yeah, so what was your thoughts on the Kelmac red card? So their first yellow that he get, did you think that was a yellow or do you think it was soft? And then his second one, should the goal have been enough of a penalty there, or should it have been the goal that they scored plus the yellow that he copped to send him off?
Yeah, the first one was never a yellow card, particularly when you look at other incidents. I feel like he gave it because he'd booked Simpson, the Sevco player, for the elbow to the head. So I felt like it was more of a first chance you could get to book a Celtic player to even things up, and he's done it. And the second one, I know somebody posted a rule online saying that it technically shouldn't have been a yellow card. There's like a semantic in the rule where if you commit a foul, but advantage is allowed, which leads to a chance to score, so if it was a red card offence, it drops down to a yellow, and if it's a yellow, it drops down to nothing. So they were saying there's a rule that was introduced last year which does that takes it a step down. And to be honest, like, I'm taking that as secondary information, and I went to try and find the primary source on the IFAB website, and I was looking at it for about 20 minutes and gave up. I found the kind of bit they were referencing to, but it sounded like it was referring to a different type of foul. And when Nick, was it Welsh or Walsh? I forget, comes off and says, yep, both tackles were reckless. I feel like when he's saying reckless, that doesn't apply to that rule that people were using to say it shouldn't have been a yellow card. But look, there was no question the second foul was a yellow card worthy offence. Whether the rules say he should have got it or not, I can't really say. I'd need to leave for other people to go through the IFAB 90-page rules document. But no, the first one was soft as a baby shit and was just to even it up for the one that Simpson had got.
Yeah, I'm 50-50 on the first one. Like, I can see both sides of it, but technically I don't think it should have been. This is, my blinkers are off completely. I don't want anyone to say it's green tinted specs or whatever, but the second one, as soon as he went down to the ground, I'm like, he's off. He's just done an encham in St Mirren, where he had two quick yellows and was off, looked like he didn't want to be there. Yeah, yep. Come across that way. It was like, you just got booked and then you do that. You're asking to get sent off for an early shower. So, yeah, I was real disappointed with Kelmack's effort there.
Yeah, maybe he knows he's going to the Euros and he just wants a couple of games off.
Yep. Then, okay, credit where it's due. Before that first goal that they scored, Alan McGregor, we've been talking about him all season, that a goalkeeper that can win you 15, 20 points a season is worth their weight in gold. We had that last season in Fraser Forster. They've had that this season with Alan McGregor. That save that he did, fingertips onto the crossbar, I'll put my hand up and say that is class save. If that was our keeper, I'd be raving about it. So I've got to be upfront about it and say that was a quality save. He kept them in that early on. And then their goal, Roof was it, with their first one, where he just chested it in. Like, yeah, that was a good heads-up play to do that. I'll give credit where it's due.
Yeah, the fact is, came off the crossbar he's tipped it onto the crossbar, and then they've pretty much went up and scored straight from that. It's like it was like was it the game at Ibrox where we lost 1-0, where Griffiths has got one that's going in, couldn't get any further in the top corner, and McGregor tips it around. And I mean, I know they didn't go up and score from them, but it's the same idea. Both games we should be 1-0 up. If the goalkeepers were swapped around, we'd be in the lead in both games, Yep. So that's the difference,
And then you've got their second goal. So Edouard equalises with a nice header, good movement in the box. And then after that, you had Bruni getting nutmegged by El Buffalo. And, goalkeeper shouldn't ever have got beaten at his near post. Aya shouldn't have gone to ground the way he did, or ducked it, as some people are saying. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, I suppose. But what's your take on that goal?
Yeah, as you say, it was a snapshot of where Bruni is now, and it is the one player you don't want to see celebrating against Celtic. The guy is an absolute cretin of a human being, and was, by all accounts, the only footballer on the Twitter sphere who broke the embargo, the social media boycott. So he broke that embargo to post a picture of himself celebrating.
About that celebration, what is it, like 5 years ago when he's doing a Salt Bay? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's for teenagers as well. Like, that's his mentality,
Yeah, it's pathetic.
He has his yeah, he's an arsehole. And yeah, and look, it's the same person that complains. Again, I don't condone the racism, but he's first to put his shout about it, and then when everyone's standing against racism and boycotting social media abuse, he just breaks the lines and posts to celebrate, completely classless, completely unaware of, the wider society and what's going on around him.
I'd say
the guy's a moron.
I'd say read the room, Alfredo, but do you actually think he can read?
Well, he certainly can't read or speak English, so that's one thing.
Probably part of it, but yeah. So on our run sheet, you put up about his shots over the course of the season, I think that would be. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, my brother texted me a screenshot of the SPFL stats website, which shows that over the course of the season, Celtic have had 640 shots versus 584 for Sevco. Whereas, I don't have the numbers to hand, but I'm sure you can gather we've scored far fewer goals than they have. So really, I know we didn't have a ton of shots at the weekend, but we did have some great chances. That header from El Yunusi, the header from Turnbull. What was the other one? There was another one for someone I've forgotten now. There was 3 in the second half that were really quality chances. I was listening to was it Axom or Four Tims, one of them. They were talking about the expected goals. So even for the weekend when we were a man down, based on the quality of chances created, Celtic actually had a higher expected goals number than Rangers, which means just creating chances in better positions. So we had like 2.1 to their 1.3, which means, statistically, if you're finishing at the same rate, you should be winning that game. But no, we're just profligate in front of goal and they're clinical. And same as what Kennedy said after the game about we can't defend balls into the box and they can. It's almost like we're talking about Scott Brown getting run ragged, but the fundamentals at either side of the pitch, we are failing. And we're missing Julian at one end. We're missing an interested striker at the other end. And Sevco have got those things. Even if those players are of lower quality, they're doing the job,
Yeah, you make a good point there. And for me, it's like, yes, we're missing things, but it's basics. It's work rate. It's the will to win. It's all the stuff that's up in your head here that looks like guys are checked out. And we knew they did that earlier in the season, but they're not hiding it now. And Kennedy makes that comment about defending. Great, whatever. There'll be people out there off the back of that going, oh, he's a defensive coach. He should know better, blah, blah, blah. He's not. He's an interim manager now. He's not a defensive coach, so I don't want to hear that bullshit. But the other thing, let's flip it back onto Kennedy for a second here. If you know that's a problem and players are constantly making the same mistakes, how would you tackle that? Like, he's not the one out there, they put a cross in, the whole defensive line stepping forward to play a guy offside, and the one guy stays at home and puts someone onside. He's not the one making that decision. So it's tough for him, but at the same time, the buck stops with him because he's the guy in the big chair. He should be, if guys aren't going to do it, dropping guys, putting people in there, working on things on the training ground. So it's one where he's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't, and he shouldn't have made that comment because he's setting himself up for a fail.
Yeah. So I've pulled up the stats here, and Sevco have scored 85 goals to Celtic's 74. And even shots on target, we've even got them beat on that. So even with 236 shots on target to their 211 over the season. Yeah, so I don't know. What can you say about that,
Shite. That's what you can say. Absolute shite.
Yep.
Now, I have something else I want to ask about the game. This is probably the last thing I want to mention. Griffiths is on the bench. Ayeti is on the bench. Edouard comes off and we bring on Mikey Johnson. Do you think that was because Griffiths and Yeti are that unfit that they couldn't do a job for half an hour? Or is it because he knows that we've got numbers against us, so we're going to put Mikey on because he can do more running? What do you think that was?
Yeah, I think it's the second one. I think it's just you've got 10 men, you've got more yards to cover, and he doesn't believe that Griffiths or Ayeti will cover those yards. Whether that's correct or not, I don't know, because Griffiths you would expect to be busting a gut because of the potential to go to the Euros, which is why I would have started him in the first place.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm saying that's what his belief is. I don't believe it's down to fitness. Surely it can't be. Like, if a guy can't get fit after 3 weeks of not being injured, then do you mean like he's getting 20 grand a week? You should sack him at that point. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's negligence.
And what's he doing as a professional footballer? Yeah.
Yeah, like go to Aberdeen, join Scott Brown. Do you know what I mean? Take on Gallagher, whatever. See you next year when you come and visit.
So, final thoughts on the game. 4-1 loss away at Ibrox. What are your thoughts on that, Sean? Final thoughts.
Yeah, like the third goal was the worst, I think, when Ayer is marking 3 players. And like for that reason I don't hold Ayer to account. Like, there's like 5 Celtic players around him that are nowhere near a Sevco player, and he's marking 3 Sevco players on his own. I've always said Ayer is shit at heading the ball. You know, he's not that kind of player, but in that occasion, the evidence was he's the only one even trying to do it, even if he's not very good at it. And then the fourth goal, chalk it up to tiredness. That's fine. 3-1 was more of a reflection of the game rather than 4-1. That one's just kind of kicking us when we're down. But honestly, I was just like, I just didn't want to be watching it anymore in the second half. I was just kind of like, this is torture, you know. Try to put it in a bottle, remember it, so that when we do come back and win the league again, I'm taking a mental note of all the posts I've seen in social media, all the people I've heard shouting, so that I can shout right back, hopefully next year.
Exactly. So would there be any of our guys you'd give a pass mark to for the game?
Ayer for it in terms of effort.
Yep.
And no, I'd give him a pass mark actually in terms of actual contribution and more than a pass mark in terms of effort. Maybe Taylor.
Yeah. I had 2 that I would have given pass marks to, and you just nailed them there. Ayer and Taylor, yeah. The only 2 I think can come out of there holding their heads up high.
Turnbull, maybe on effort, but not in quality. Like, he was shit. Like, but he did put on a good shift. You know, he was trying. Yeah.
You know what?
That was it.
We're missing Tom Rogic.
It's like the name came into my head. I'm not going to lie, but he's obviously in the same boat as Griffiths. Like, not match ready for whatever reason.
Yep, I'm just saying that for a laugh because, you know, I had the Aussie bias in me. Yeah. So my final thoughts on the game are summed up with this.
What the hell is that?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I'm more relieved that we don't have another one, and you know, but by the time we do play them again, it's going to be 2 years since we've beat them.
Far out.
So, yeah,
that's a lot worse than I thought it was.
Because the last one was when Johnny Hayes scored. That was the last time we beat them.
Oh, Johnny Hayes, CFC. Yep. So
yeah, we need to go away, regroup, have an hour crack.
Yep. On a positive, the women won 8-0.
Yeah, against Forfar.
Yeah, just had to say.
They beat Sevco the week before, didn't they?
Yeah.
So the women are doing quite well. I don't think... Are they challenging for the league? I don't think so.
I think they're in 3rd at the moment. I can check.
I didn't actually check the table, but I believe it was presented to me as they were more doing damage to Sevco than they were
chances
of Celtic.
Yeah, so they're they've had a couple of good wins. They've got like a 10-0 win against Hearts early in the season. Yeah, they did Rangers 1-0. They did Hibs 3-1 at K Park, and then they've done 4 for Farmington 8-0. Then on Sunday coming up, they've got Motherwell, and then the big game away on the 12th of May, they'll be playing Glasgow City, who are the top team.
Quite a few games left in there. So I'm looking at it now. Glasgow City are on 36 points. Sevco Women are on 33, and Celtic are on 31. And then there's a big drop after that.
Yeah, there's only the 3 or 4 professional teams, and the top 2 get in the Champions League. So that's what they're pushing for there. So it's good to see. So we'll give them a shout out.
Motherwell next, then Glasgow City is the one, really, the big one.
Yeah. And then there's another game against Rangers.
That's right.
On the 23rd of May. So if they can beat Glasgow City and beat Rangers again, then we're looking good for the Champions League.
On the final game of the season is Glasgow City versus Rangers.
So someone will drop points, hopefully, and we take care of our side of it. We're laughing.
Yeah. Oh, maybe we can get around that. Something to cheer, hopefully.
Oh, well, that's why I mentioned it, because I'm like, we haven't had a lot of positives on the bloke side of it, so, I'm going to jump on that bandwagon.
That's it. We've been supporting Celtic women all along. That's it.
Yeah, heaps.
Yeah. But what are the men doing? I don't know. We're here for the women.
Yeah. So, remaining fixtures for the guys on Thursday, 13th of May. That's our time, so would that be Wednesday over there? Playing St Johnson at Celtic Park, last home game of the season. And then 2 days later on Saturday, it's a nice one, 9:30 for us over here. We're playing Hibs at Easter Road to finish the season. Yeah,
which one's the Scott Brown game? They're doing a fan tribute game.
That'd be the last home game. That'd be St Johnson one.
Yeah, they're doing something where they're letting fans drop off, I don't know, like scarves or jerseys or stuff that they'll put in the seats for the game. I think something like that. I heard, I wasn't quite clear on it, and it doesn't really concern me because I can't make it.
Yep. We'll 2 games to go, and probably next week's podcast will be previewing the St Johnson game because it's on that night over there for us. So perfect. So next topic: John Kennedy, director of football rumours. Yeah or no, Sean?
Big fat no. To be honest, I'm not, like, if you'd asked me a year ago, I probably would have said yes. But the way things have gone this year, John Kennedy is now covered in stink and has proven himself not, was it 3 wins out of 8?
Yep.
I know he's not going to, I know director of football is not manager, but he's currently directing football and not doing a good job of it. So the point of a director of football is to split the manager's role into 2. So he is technically doing some of the duties of a director of football right now and doing a bang shit job of it.
Yep. I wouldn't go with it either. Yeah, as you said, if it was a year ago, it was 12, 18 months ago, I would have been like, yeah, no problem, sounds good. But yeah, he's got that stench of failure on him now. So I'd rather him move on, go coach somewhere else and work his way back to us in the future if that's the way things play out. But I don't know. Don't see it happening. I think we'll have, you probably have a David Webb in there or a who's the guy from Bournemouth that he mentioned again? Was it Hughes?
Richard Hughes.
Hughes, yeah. I almost said Robert for some reason. So Richard Hughes or Enzo Maresca.
Was it Fergal Harkin, not that one?
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, Fergal Harkin.
Yeah.
You have one of those 3, I reckon, will be in the director of football role. I don't see John Kennedy doing that. Yeah,
in terms of Kennedy and Harkin, I don't, all of them, I can't judge their abilities beforehand. I'm just not that's a very background role. So you and I can't really judge that from the outside. But the red flags is stuff like Kennedy being a Celtic careerist. Like, to me, that's how do we know he's objectively good at it when his CV is, he's getting the sentimental Celtic careerist appointment at every level. And the same for Fergal Harkin, where he's Irish born and bred, and Dermot Desmond's pulling the strings. Do you know what I mean? That's the old nepotism.
Actually,
Fergal Harkin might be amazing. He might be above the ability of what we can hope to realistically achieve, but for me, it's a red flag when it's jobs for the boys and nepotism.
I actually don't agree with you there on Fergal Harkin. Like,
no? Okay.
If you've seen his background, he was a successful businessman at Nike for years in Nike football and running that, like having good responsibility there.
Mm-hmm.
At Man City, he's worked his way up to the point now where he's overseeing all their loan players and pathways and who's going out on loan to what clubs. He's got his analytics behind him. He's got his recruitment staff with him. He's got for people that they want to bring in from elsewhere for their youth stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that, to me, he's got the business acumen and the football acumen behind him. And if he's already got a relationship because he's mates with Dermot, yeah, it may not look the greatest on paper or the people online, like you're saying. You don't agree with it. You may think, oh, it's nepotism, it's jobs for the boys. But to me, if you've got to work day in, day out with these people and you've got that relationship where you can say, hey, we need to spend an extra $500,000 on or £500,000 setting on wages to bring in analytics staff, to bring in this, to bring in recruitment, to bring in, dietitians and all this sort of stuff. And they can explain it in a way that it's going to get the guy on board. It'll probably make the job a bit easier. If you had Richard Hughes coming in, he has no relationship with Dermot Desmond, do you really think he'll get that $500,000 that he needs to set that structure up behind the back of the house? I don't know. So I think it could actually be a positive to do that, but it all depends on what the director of football's role and responsibility is day in, day out. Is he going to be setting
I hear
up,
what you're saying. Yeah.
Is he going to
sorry?
Is he going to be setting up just the academy or the recruitment or the coaching or sports science, dietitians, everything? Or is he just going to be focusing purely on 2 or 3 of them? If that's what it is, and then you get a head of recruitment who reports into him, great.
Mm-hmm.
Then that could work as well. But it's a matter of figuring out what his actual role is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not like I said, I it could be that. Like, it's difficult from my. You've obviously checked a bit more than me, but from my point of view, it's like, yes, there is a chance those business contacts are giving us access to someone we wouldn't normally have access to. But the flip side also might be that he normally wouldn't have access to that kind of level of job.
Yep.
So it kind of cuts both ways.
Yeah.
It could be him that's benefiting, or it could be us, because it's an unusual kind of link up, an unusual connection.
But that's what I like about this. We can debate it. We can talk about it. At the end of the day, we're both armchair experts over here in Australia who have absolutely no say. The club will do what the club wants to do. So, yeah, like the guys.
Come on, the experts, Jarrod. Come on.
Oh yeah, I've got my recreation certificate in recreation, sports admin, and coaching. But that qualifies me.
Experts like Gillian McKeith.
Yeah, heaps. So, the way I look at it is, if you were to go through all the people they're talking about, on paper, Hughes has a relationship with Eddie Howe and would be good in that role, director of football role.
Mm-hmm.
But then Fergal Harkin's got the business contacts and he's got the training and the Man City background behind him, as we've just discussed. But the one that is sneaking under the radar, and he's appeared on a couple of podcasts, like he's been on 67 Howe before, and he was on, I think it was 20 Minute Tim Taddy, one of their Patreon podcasts, as well as David Webb, who was director of football at Hamburg, at Huddersfield, and a bunch of other clubs. And he's also worked at Bournemouth before with Eddie Howe. And yeah, anytime I listen to him talk, I'm like, he knows the role inside out, what's required. So you've got a guy with the experience and the runs on the board. You've got the up and coming in Fergal Harkin, and then you've got Eddie's mate. That's the way I look at it. So it depends on how we're going to go and what the balance will be.
Yeah. Something I was thinking about the other day is like when you're bringing in a director of football or someone to set up a scouting network or whatever you're talking about is one of the clear and obvious upsides of having someone like Fergal Harkin. So obviously he brings with that his relationships and his business contacts and his knowledge. But I don't know this for sure, but what I would assume is that he's not allowed to bring any of his information because you would expect that that's owned by his employer. So obviously they can't go into his head and take things out, but all of that kind of database and information, he can't take that with him. That's property of Man City or
intellectual property rights. That's what that is. So it'd be pretty much any contract at an employer, whether it's if you're a school teacher, you're working freight like in logistics like I do, or if you're a director of football or something at a football club, there's a clause in pretty much every standard contract that you would see that says anything that you create while working for your employer is the intellectual property of the employer, not the employee. So you're spot on there. So he may know the structure, how it's all worked and who these people are and know who to look at and that he can take his relationships with him and contacts, but because he dealt with these people over the years, but he's not going to be able to take a document or, take the exact thing he's doing and bring it straight with him because, he'd be in breach of his contract. Now, if he was to come from Man City, more than likely because he's got his own team there with him overseeing the pathways, there's no way he'd be able to pick up and take all 12 staff with him straight into the club. Celtic couldn't afford that, first of all. And like Man City, had let them all up and go and take all that property and intellectual property and all the knowledge that they've got straight away. There's no way they'd do it. So if he was to come in and probably get one person from his analytics, one person from his recruitment, one person from his sports science to come along with him to establish the basis of what he wants to do based on what he has been doing and then recruit to fill out those teams, then that would probably work and he wouldn't get in trouble for breaching a contract. But, he can't just pick it all up and just bring it all straight into Glasgow.
Because as far as I'm aware at the moment, our scouting network is Tosh McKinley plus tweets from ex-players like Lubo Moravchik and, that's it. I think Tosh McKinley is the only scout that I'm aware of. That's
pathetic.
Yeah.
And tips.
And I'm pretty sure there's no centralised kind of vetting of whatever he's bringing back.
And the funny thing is, I'm going to say this, we bagged the living shit out of the Huns for having the exact same setup under King. Then they bring in that Ross Wilson bloke and suddenly look at their recruitment over the last 6 to 12 months compared to ours.
Yeah, they've even signed someone for next year already.
Yeah. One of Jack Hendry's teammates.
Yeah, I heard he got injured. Is that right?
Yeah, he got absolutely smashed in some tackle and a bit hurt, but I don't know. I don't know how bad it was.
I also heard he was nominated for Player of the Year or something like that in the country.
Yep. He's basically the best defender in Belgium, and you know how strong that league is. He's up for that award and Player of the Year, yet he can't break into our team.
Well, bring him back.
Shot. Bring him back. Give him another shot. Needs to happen.
Can't be any worse than Welsh or Duffy.
Well, we still haven't replaced Jose. And Duffy was...
Well, he's a free agent.
Yeah.
Bring him back.
And Duffy,
bring him home.
No, there'll be no Jose because he's got glass knees.
No, actually, I can't stand Jose. He's such a bomb scare. But he's been better than Duffy. That's all I'll say.
The last thing I heard of Jose was he was linked with an A-League team, like the Brisbane Roar.
That makes sense.
Come over here, play on our hard pitches in summer. Yep, that would work.
Well, he basically needs to go to a team where he's allowed to not train.
Yeah.
And just show up and play games at the weekend.
one game a week could work for him in the A-League, so maybe that's his level now.
I think so. Yeah, as you say, he's like, I think he's just got like Ritz crackers for knees. Do you know what I mean?
Why'd you have to bring up Ritz crackers now? You're making me hungry, mate.
Sorry, I thought me opening the whiskey bottle there might have made you thirsty as well.
Yeah, peeps. All right, Charlie Nicholas's comments. What is a legend? I'll throw that to you.
Yeah, I don't normally concern myself with whatever Charlie Nicholas is saying, but to say that Scott Brown is not a legend is made me wonder what exactly. If Scott Brown is not a legend, then what exactly do you have to do to be considered a legend? I've forgotten the actual number. What Scott Brown won 22 trophies at Celtic and 23
overall,
including the one at Hibs. Is that right?
Yep.
And he's played over 600 games for Celtic, or I can't remember if that's at Celtic in total, but he's been here. How many players get testimonials these days? He's been here 14 years, or there and thereabouts, 13, 14 years, and like 50 odd caps for Scotland. You know, if he is not a legend, I don't get it. I don't know what the criteria is. You know, if the criteria is you have to win a European Cup, then there's no more legends to be made at Celtic.
I have a question for you. How many seasons did Henrik play at the club?
Was it 7?
7. How many has Bruni played at the club?
Again, he signed
double that. There's your answer.
7, so 14. Yeah, 14.
So
right.
This is 14th season. So if Henrik is classified as a Celtic legend, why isn't Bruni?
Yeah.
That's all I have to say. Like, I'm not even going to justify an answer to Charlie Nicholas and his stupid comments. He doesn't deserve it. Making comments like that is him just being an oxygen thief, just wanting to put his name in lights and just stir controversy. At the end of the day, clear as mud, Bruni is a club legend.
Yeah.
He's a captain for all 9 of those titles in a row. Like, enough said.
I think I've said in a previous podcast that the two, if you were to ask me who deserves a statue, outside Celtic Park, it would be either Brown or McCann, Ferguson McCann or Scott Brown.
They're the next two.
The two for me.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no one else, you know. If that doesn't mean legends, you know.
Yeah. The next two for a statue, 100%. The Bunnett and Bruni.
Has to be.
There's no one else. Like, you can talk all you want. You can say, oh, we've got to put up a statue of, I don't know, Neil Lennon did a lot for the club. No. He did as a player and a manager, but Bruni would get his statue before him.
And I think Neil Lennon is a legend. I do.
He is.
So what's Charlie Nicholas getting shitty about? Is he trying to reclassify the word so that he can get counted as a legend? I don't know.
I have a question for you. What drugs do you think he's on? Because I'd love to know. Because that would be some seriously good shit about now, I'm telling you.
I think it begins with a C, but isn't champagne. So you can, I mean, probably not a coincidence. I'm assuming he still owns all his nightclubs and pubs and still drives about in a limo.
Allegedly. There we go. Allegedly.
We'll
throw allegedly in, even if it doesn't make sense. So there's no suing going on here.
Yeah. We're just making jokes. Sorry, Charlie. You're a legend, Charlie.
You're a legend in your own lunchbox, Charlie. Now fuck off.
I think he'd be more of a legend at Arsenal than he is at Celtic. Well, I don't think. He definitely is. You know, and I don't even think they consider him a legend. What, they've got a Thierry Henry statue outside. Maybe that's what he's shitty about. Maybe he's shitty because there's a Thierry Henry statue and not a Charlie Nicholas one outside Arsenal.
Maybe he's shitty because Henry's about to become a part owner in bloody Arsenal.
Yeah. Yeah, Charlie shouldn't have spent all your money on quote-unquote champagne.
So let's tie that little segue thing that I made there about shares in Arsenal. You put something on our run sheet, season ticket shares. Season
Quite a
ticket
hot topic.
refunds for shares. It's being spoken about. You've got Celtic Shared and the Celtic Trust pushing for people who, have been season ticket holders to get a refund, but not cash coming out of the club, but shares to be issued for them. So then they can be passed on behalf of the shareholder, the people who get those shares, to the trust so that they can try and get fan ownership of the club. We've discussed this off air. You've got a different view on the point on this than I do, Sean, so I'll throw it to you again.
Yeah, I think it's good. A good idea. It's a kind of win-win because it doesn't take money away from the club. Whereas if they start issuing refunds and discounts, that harms the bottom line for next year and harms the profile of players we can get in the squad. And it also increases the profile of fan representation within the club. I think that's can only be a good thing at any team. If you look at in Germany, where every team bar one is 51% or 50 plus one.
2 clubs in Germany.
2? Sorry, what was the 2? Red Bull and...
Red Bull, and then you've got... Actually 3. Bayer Leverkusen is owned majority by Bayer.
Oh, okay.
And then you've got Wolfsburg is majority owned by Volkswagen.
Okay.
Because those 2 clubs were originally founded as clubs for the staff of those 2 companies to play at.
Got you. So it's basically the 3 teams that are owned by separate corporate entities. Okay. So, but either way, they're still 49% fan owned, something like that. So either way, I don't know what we are. We're basically the fans on our boards, on our shares are, I don't know. It's like 5%, maybe less than that. I don't know, whatever it is. Whenever AGM comes around, Desmond has enough shares that he just chooses whether resolutions pass or fail. And I'm not saying we're going to get to a point where fans can veto or push through any resolution, but the more shares you have, the more of a voice you have. And I think it's a good thing. Even if it's not a meaningful shareholding for the fans, it's you could say to them, oh, well, for the value you've lost this year, we'll send you out a home and away Adidas strip, and I give you a gift voucher for the Celtic store. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's another way to keep the money in the club, but fans are going to be like, well, this is the strip when we lost the 10. I don't want this kind of thing. Whereas if it's shares, you've got a long-term ongoing connection to the club. That was how the share issue under Ferguson McCann was so successful. Nobody at that time bought a share to sell it in the future or make money back. And it would be the same this time. Fans, well, actually they might. Because that's the thing, that even if you get issued a share for your season ticket or percentage of it, you could then just straight away turn around and sell it and get your money back. So I think, so do you know what I mean? So there's an option there to get the money back, but I would assume that most people would keep it. And again, not for the purpose of selling it for profit in the future, but for feeling that they literally own a part of the club that they support. And I don't see how that can be. I know you have an opposing viewpoint, Jarrod, but the reason that the board, I've heard the board are opposed to it, and as far as I'm concerned, the only reason is because they don't want to dilute the value of their shares, and that appears to me to be the only reason for them to not do it, because it seems like a win-win for the board and for the fans. So I'm trying to ask myself why that's not happening, and I'm interested to hear. I know you alluded to it off air, Jarrod, but you didn't really get into it in depth, so I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, okay, a lot of what you said makes sense, and I don't disagree with you. What my concern is, and it's got nothing to do with the current board members, it comes down to 3 or 4 main issues. One, most times when you buy shares, there's a minimum share requirement to become a shareholder. Like if I wanted to buy shares in the club, I wouldn't be able to buy just 1 share or 2 shares or 3 shares or whatever. If your season ticket value is 600 quid, right, and the current share price is, say, £125, right, which is what we looked it up beforehand. you'll get...
Well, it's 125 something.
Yeah. So
we can't quite figure out the currency.
Yeah. So realistically, if you were to do that, you've got this year, you got your Path to Paradise thing, which is basically Celtic TV. That's about £100 worth of value. That's it. So there's 500 left over. So you get that 500 divided by the current share price, you'd get 4 shares. If I wanted to go online and buy shares now in any company, there's a minimum share quantity that I need. I can't just buy 1 share. So how would I be able to get 4 shares? If I went on to Celtic to buy them now, I'd probably have to buy a minimum, whether it's 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000 shares in some companies. That's the minimum. So that's my first issue. There's rules and regulations by the people who run the stock exchange that this would fall afoul of. That's my main reason why I don't agree with it. Because there's government regulations, there's stock exchange regulations that Celtic can't just override to do this to give back to the fans. I would love them to do that. I'd love to go down the German path where it's 50% plus 1 is fan ownership. Don't get me wrong, I'm 100% behind that. But that's the biggest issue. The second thing is if that did happen, and instead of going, okay, we're going to give you individually, Sean, you get 4 shares, and Liam gets 4 shares, and Jarrod gets 4 shares because that was my season ticket value, right? If we were all over there, that's 12 shares. If there's a minimum that they decide, okay, we're going to give up 20,000 shares, and they're all spread out, that's 20,000 people who now have voting rights at the AGM. So it becomes messy. So that's the second thing that the club's not going to like. The third thing is if everyone puts them together as a block and allows the Celtic Trust to run that for them, yes, you own your 4 shares or 5 shares or whatever it is in the club, but who's going to be managing that for you? Is the Celtic Trust going to be contacting all 5,000 shareholders that make up that 20,000 block with 4 shares each to check what all their votes want to be, to then go to the AGM to vote that way on behalf of the majority of the shareholders? Because if you've got 5,000 shareholders, you could have 5,000 different thought processes and people wanting to go.
Well, I think...
And you got people wanting to go, Resolution 12, for instance, if you had that and you had 5,000 people wanting it, I guarantee you'd probably have 3,000-4,000 saying, yep, let's push this, or financial fair play, let's push it. But that other 1,000, they may be pissed off if they don't want to do that, but they get voted down by everyone else in the block. So that's a whole nother issue again. So while the idea in principle makes sense and I'm for it, I'd need to see more information on exactly how this is going to be put to the club, how it's going to be controlled and actioned within the shareholder group, and how the club's going to get around getting in trouble with the stock exchange and the regulations on that front.
Yep. It's a good question. And I think it would need to wait to the AGM to officially be actioned, because that's the sort of thing you need a resolution, an AGM resolution to action. I've just found a different document on the stock exchange while we were chatting earlier. And it seems that 120 does actually represent £1.20. So it's 120 pence per share. So I also found a document from, hold on, was it today? Yeah, today. So a document issued today, which appears, I'm going to say appears, because I'm really not a financial expert in any way, despite all the money I'm making in Bitcoin, appears to have listed all the current share standings of Celtic and the different types of shares. So if I'm reading that correctly, it says that we have just under 800 million shares active. Okay, so if we're looking at, what we at, 52,000 season ticket holders, and they paid, say, £500 each. I don't know, is that right? £550? How much is the season ticket these days?
Yeah, about that. About £500-600.
So we'll say £550, and we'll deduct the what the value that they're saying is £90 for the streaming.
Yep.
So we'll deduct £90 from that. So 550 minus 90, 460. So if we times that by 460 and divide it by £1.20, which is the share price, that comes out at 19, just under 20 million shares. So 20 million shares versus what is currently an 800 million share value. So 20 million divided by 800 million, so it would be 2.5% of the current share total if all of the current season ticket holders converted to shares. So I don't it's not going to damage. I don't think it's going to damage the bottom line of the board. So I don't know why they're against it. I mean, I get that share value does dilute, even the value drops when you dilute, even if it's maybe not in a proportionate manner. And I also hear what you're saying about the proxies and the voting and stuff like that. But the point of the Celtic Trust, the campaign they're kind of running, is that if this happens, when you get your share issue as a fan, the way they're kind of framing it is you either sell it straight away to whoever, Celtic Trust maybe, or you immediately assign proxy voting rights to the Celtic Trust. So you're creating everyone that's a season ticket holder is kind of either getting their money back or adding to this block of voting. And if the numbers I'm looking at are right, which they're probably not, because I'm just a spiv, it's only 2.5%. But that's, I don't know. Like, Sevco fans have got a higher percentage in their club. You know what I mean? I don't know what to make of that, to be honest with you. That's
because they were bought in when they were in the third tier.
And it's also because people at Dave King currently oversell the shares to them at a higher value.
Yep.
When he's trying to get his money back. Their shares currently sell for. So what happens is, because they're not listed, they don't have an official share price. But whenever a board member's trying to get rid of shares, he sells it onto Club 1690. No.
1872.
What's the name of it?
Club 1872.
Sorry? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Club 1872. And they sell it onto them for 20 pence a share. Because there's no official share price, they can just literally name their price and those mugs will pay it. They could literally probably, if they tried to sell it for 5 pence in the open market, they probably wouldn't. But, well, actually, maybe now that they've won the league and have Champions League access. But, yeah, that's what's happened in the past. But, yeah, we're trading at 120 and they're down at 20 pence, not listed, and have a higher representation percentage-wise. Again, I don't know what to make of that. I'm not a financial advisor. This is just things that are happening, and I don't really know what's good and what's bad, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's a watch this space there and see what happens. But as I said, there's a few concerns I have there, but and that's the only reason I'm not for it at the moment. If there was more information available on exactly how it works and it ticks those boxes and it's not illegal and it's not going to cause any issues and the board goes for it, then I'd be all for that. But at this point in time, until I've got more info, I don't want to, put my eggs in that basket. I want to be sitting on that fence. I don't want to be either side of it. I'll be devil's advocate and ask those questions just to get the conversation going. So
yeah, and that's what we all should be doing.
Yep. Next topic you had on the list: Griffiths' contract.
Yeah, well, we already talked about Griffiths and his unprofessionalism, but I gather the deadline has passed for Celtic either declining or accepting that 1 year option.
Yep.
And I'm wondering why it's radio silent.
Because it's Celtic. What do you expect? When do they tell us anything other than it's someone's birthday?
But why is his agent not saying anything? Why is he not saying anything?
Yeah,
it makes me think they've taken it, because otherwise he'd be getting his name out there and his agent would be linking him with other teams if he was negotiating with other teams,
Could be a gentleman's agreement, who knows? But yeah, makes you wonder.
Because I believe at least the public story was that the end of April was the deadline for that.
Yep. Yeah, it was 30th of April from what all the stories out there were. So yeah, watch this space on that one, I suppose, as well. And talking
Which
about...
kind of links...
Sorry, what?
Yeah, sorry?
No, I was just
No, I was
going
going to say it kind of links to the next part.
yeah.
The rumor, I'm sure you've heard that Eddie Howe is making decisions on incoming and outgoing players already.
Yep, I was going to say Eddie Howe. The latest on that is radio silence as well. So
Yeah, but I feel like there's strategic leaks. I don't know. Do you get that impression?
I get the vibe that the club's not really stressing about it. Where like you got people being approved to go, people, like the guys going off to America, Klamala being sold, and this sort of stuff, and Manny Perez moving on. There's got to be someone making a call on that, and if Law's on his way out, it's not going to be him. So realistically, I'm like, if Eddie Howe's just waiting to see what happens with Bournemouth. If they get promoted to the Premier League, then he's going to have to go down a different path for his backroom staff. But if they don't, it'll make getting the guys he wants to come up to Glasgow with him more affordable and easier to get. Then, yeah, I'd be all for that. I don't mind him sitting back there. They just be every move they want to make. They're like, "What do you reckon, Eddie? Would you be happy with this if it happened? Yes or no?" If he says no, they're not going to sell a player that he wants to keep. Because last thing they want to do is cut their nose off to spite their face and piss him off, and then he just goes, "Nah, forget this. I'm going to go to Crystal Palace."
Yeah, I don't normally give much credit to these kind of paper rumors, but they just seem to have a kind of different tone and credibility to them in the last month, to the point where it's almost like Celtic are deliberately leaking this information. Because the fans are doing what the fans are doing, but they also Eddie Howe's publicly said, his agent publicly said that he's not doing anything until the summer, and we all have inferred that that's to do with his Bournemouth contract and payoffs from that. So I feel like these leaks, and they're not just to mainstream media, like stuff like Phil McGilben's getting leaks, although from what I've heard, he might just be having voices in his head that's giving him the leaks. But also the Axon guys, the Celtic State of Mind guys, from what they have very reliable sources. So when John Paul says something like, and he kind of couches it in a way where like, well, I believe, and generally, and he kind of says it in a way where he's not really saying it, and he's kind of, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, he's saying it in a way that this is what I've heard, but I'm not going to give you too much of it because I don't want to out my source.
Yeah, like he's not saying things definite, but he's saying, "Oh, I have, like, I'm reliably informed, or I strongly believe," and he never. And the thing is, like, he knew months before Rodgers walked out that Rodgers was going to do that, and he didn't air it. So the things that he's saying, like, he's now committing to saying on air, it's kind of like, well, his sources have proven reliable in the past.
Yep.
So, and like, I also feel like the fact that they're kind of naming their podcasts with a Eddie Howe pun like every other day, it's almost like they're trying to tell us, calm down, it's coming, Don't
worry, I already got my one set up with an Aussie flavour ready to go for when it happens. I already got my pun right there. Don't you worry about that.
What are we going with? Is it how you doing?
Could be that.
Is it how you doing with Eddie Howe's face on Joey from Friends?
Nah. I'm gonna go the old, the Aussie cricket version, the song "How's That."
Oh,
how's that? And the picture of his face with someone appealing sounds good to me.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, man. There's a lot of rich veins there for the puns of Eddie Howe, isn't there?
Oh, there's heaps. There's heaps.
Eddie, steady, go.
Steady Eddie.
Yeah. Hold on, how long have we got left? 15 minutes, let's go. 15 minutes of Eddie Howe puns.
Nah.
Have we got time to do our Q&A?
Yeah, we've got enough time. We've got a few questions that were sent through, so we've got to do the right thing here and get to them. So,
cool.
First one come from on Twitter, Celtic Rab 19671. Player of the year must be Law. He can break things up, stop progression, be tight, hold things up, and he single-handedly won 29 trophies. Let's hope we have a new manager next week, lads. I don't know how that's a question, but it's a good point. Who do you reckon player of the year will be?
Are you saying Lawwell?
Yeah, Lawwell.
Lawwell is the player of the year, 29 trophies. Did he?
I don't know. That's what's been said. So what do you think? Who do you reckon will be player of the year?
He can't be that good because Steven Gerrard won 55 in a single season.
Yeah, we know.
Who do I think is player of the season? For Celtic or in the league?
Oh, we can go both. Do the Celtic player of the year and the league one.
So I voted for Ayer and the Celtic player of the year that everyone was slaughtering for having the audacity to post, which is a fair feedback, but also, you kind of have to stick to tradition. In terms of the league, it's the rapist, Shagger McGregor. For me, begrudgingly, I wouldn't vote for him because I don't like the guy, but yeah, it has to be. He's been the difference, I think. If I was trying to find someone outside of Sevco to vote for, it would probably be Martin Boyle.
Oh, Aussie Boyle, lovely.
Yeah, he's been good.
Yeah, for me, yeah, as much as it sucks to say, probably McGregor would be, or Connor Goldson. One of those two would be player of the year for the league. Unfortunately, our player of the year, I don't want to vote because, I can't vote for Bolly Bolingoli and how badly he butchered the season. So, nah. Seriously, it's gonna sound weird, but probably our best player in terms of who we could vote for would be. I'm just thinking for a second. Yeah, probably Turnbull, and he didn't get into the team for ages, like consistency wise. Either him or Kelmack, and Kelmack's been burnt out for half the season. So, yeah. Anyway,
yeah. Who could have seen that Kelmack would be burnt out after playing more games than any other player in the world for multiple years on end?
Oh, surprise, hey?
Yeah, who could have predicted that?
All right, next question from James Murphy. How do you think Peter Lawwell will be remembered at Celtic? As a business guru / recruitment disaster / the man who ruined the 10? Or something else?
I think he'll be remembered for his hubris and his interference in football matters and how that led to not winning the 10.
If he had left the club before Rodgers left, he'd be looked at in such a different set of, different light. But yeah, he's the guy who drove Rodgers out of the club. He's the guy who was constantly arguing with Martin O'Neill. He's had all sorts of issues. He's been successful for growing the club in terms of budget and corporate partnerships and making the club bigger off the pitch. But he's also the guy who's doing all that, bringing more money into the club, but then downsizing on the pitch. And for me, he's the guy who appointed Neil Lennon in the shower. So this is all on him.
Yeah.
We should get a picture of Pedro in the shower, with a contract on, come on, next to Neil Lennon's statue whenever that happens.
I don't think I want to see that.
As long as there's soap on a rope.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is from Thomas McGinley. When should we hear about renewing season tickets?
I doubt we'll hear anything until we're ready to make an announcement about a manager.
Yep, agreed, 100%.
Or something COVID positive, as in related to getting more fans in. And they're not going to announce it until they have good news, I don't think.
Yep, agreed. All right, the next one was, is this the worst Celtic team in living memory? And will Lawwell stay at the club in any capacity?
I guess it depends how old you are, because I remember worse teams from the 90s.
Same.
So not for me, but pretty bad. Pretty bad. It would be I guess what they're kind of asking is the Mowbray team worse than this one? I guess that's the real question here.
I'm not even going. I'm going further. I'm going back to the John Barnes team.
Well, yeah, you could argue with John Barnes. The pieces were there, Henrik Larsson and
exactly
Stan Petrov.
The Barnes team, if you played against this team, would smash your current team because the players they had Viduka, they had Petrov, they had Berkovic, they had Larsson. There was plenty of guys there. There was solid defence. But at the same time, I think this one in the Mowbray team would be on the level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tough call. I think Robbie Keane would edge it for Mowbray.
Yep. And last question from Billy, Birdie and Bobby on Twitter. What are your thoughts on Andy Walker being banned from Ibrox and Celtic Park? Is this a small club mentality? Will clubs and...
Yes.
And
sorry.
Yeah, then he's got a second question. Will clubs and players boycott of social media achieve anything regarding online abuse? And what do you think the social media companies can or should be doing about it?
Well, in answer to the first question, yeah, it's petty. It's a Sevco move, and that's the level we've been brought down to. And the second one, in terms of the online social media abuse, it's going to do absolutely piss all. Like, people that issue abuse online are not going to be like, oh no, my club didn't tweet for 72 hours, or, I better clean up my act. Come on. These people have got decades of ingrained bigotry in their brain. One weekend blackout of a platform which they use is not going to in any way, and I'm not even going to say it's not going to make the slightest bit of impact on these people. It's virtue signaling. That's all it is.
Yep, I'll agree with you there. The Andy Walker thing, that's a Sevco move. It's not a Celtic thing, and we're better than that. And yeah, the second one, unless it's all about clicks and about engagement, right? And unless clubs are going to stop doing it, sponsors like Adidas, if Nike, if Chevrolet, who sponsor Man United, if they all get on board with this as well and they all black it out and all the surrounding stuff happens and everyone blacks out, not just the players and the clubs, then you might actually get somewhere. But I don't see it happening. As you said, it's a lot of ingrained hatred and stuff there. Plus, it's the whole hero culture where I can say what I want online because no one knows who I am, unless you've got to put your ID in there and everything to get an account and everything's verified for every single person. You're going to have these issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To give you an example from outside of football, I know everyone's kind of background aware of the NFL. So until, what was it, a year and a half ago? I can't remember now. But basically last year was the first time that the Washington football team were not known as the overtly racist name of the Washington Redskins, which is kind of like if you can imagine a team being called like the Glasgow Blackskins. That's pretty much what it is. You're saying we're named after Native Americans and the color of their skin. So 2020 was the first year that they hadn't played under the name Washington Redskins. And the only thing that got them to change that name was that their sponsors basically threatened, or didn't threaten, just said, yep, we're done. We're not going to sponsor you anymore. You're going to lose hundreds of millions as long as you're carrying on with this name. And that kind of came on the back of the George Floyd protests. It wasn't, these companies didn't come to it on their own volition, but on the back of the All Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter movement. That was Nike and whoever said to the Washington quote-unquote Redskins, yep, we're not having this anymore. So they're now the Washington football team because they can't decide on a name.
I love what the owner did though. He goes, you know what we're going to do? We'll go the Washington football team. We'll stay that for 2 seasons. That gives us enough chance to have a clean break from it. And it gives us enough chance to canvass our support to come up with a new name to be changed to and the 2022 season or whatever it is.
Yeah, it looks like they're just going to stay with it though, like because it's now in the zeitgeist. Unlike people are used to calling them it now, they're probably just going to, rather than find something that choose something that someone might find some because what some of the names they were looking at were stuff like naming themselves after the army units of black soldiers, from World War II, and like it's
that's going the other way.
Like, but it's also you're naming yourself after. There could be some controversial things in there as well. Like you're never 100%, but if they just stick to apparently they're just thinking about just sticking with football team now.
The funny one I heard was the Washington Lincolns after Abraham Lincoln because, what he did for being anti-slavery and being a former president and all this sort of stuff, and then that got knocked down big time.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Political
correctness.
It was so bad for so long that they're trying to find some way to overcorrect, and what they'll do instead is just try and low key it,
Yep.
Which is the thing they should do, to be honest.
Yep. So there we go. We'll leave the podcast at that point there, and just hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, please go to our Facebook group and page and give them a like. You can search Celtic Down Under for that. On Instagram and Twitter, it's at Celtic Down. And you can go to our website, check out www.celticdownunder.com. Other than that, Howe, and we'll be back next week for another episode.
What the hell was that?
Howe.
Howe.